Hey everybody, excuse me. Sorry, I just got back home. I went out to the Taste of Chicago, so like I'm pretty full, but my legs got a little tired. I've been like walking around, but it was nice out. Thankfully, I was like worried there was might be like rain or something like that, but it's very nice out. I've been up, since like 7 or so in the morning. So uh, hopefully I still got the energy to like get at least 2 videos done today. Anywho, I've been eager to talk about Thor: Love and Thunder. I went to see it on uh, a few days ago on Thursday, which in Norse, slash Greek, would be Thor's Day, which is probably the only way to see a Thor movie, at least personally how I see how you're supposed to see a Thor movie. And you got like a lot of this is directed by Taika Waititi, so you got like a lot of returning characters from Ragnarok. Of course, Chris Hemsworth as Thor, a returning Natalie Portman as Jane Foster. We get some cameos appearances from like uh, uh, Darcy and uh, Dr. Selvig. Uh, you get Taika Waititi as Korg, Tessa Thompson as Valkyrie, and of course the newest villain, Gore the God Butcher, played by Christian Bale. I only found this about this like just yesterday that uh, I mean, by and large, this is like a family film that you didn't expect to be a family film, but a lot of the actors' children were involved in this that you didn't really expect. Taika Waititi's daughter played Gore the God Butcher's daughter in the film, and you get a glimpse of young Thor played by one of Chris Hemsworth's sons, and little dark minion thingies that the heroes fight was drawn up by Taika Waititi's children, Natalie Portman's kid, Chris Hemsworth's kid, and a lot of some of the people behind the scenes in the production area, their kids, so it's like I thought that was really really dope. uh but yeah, if you checked out my video like at least a couple of months ago of me covering the Jason Aaron run of Gore the God Butcher, uh, and like that arc with Thor meeting him for the first time, and all that going on, you can check out on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/talkativecarl, and so you'll know like the backstory, like comic book backstory of Gore the God Butcher, and why I think personally him and like uh Godspeed from The Flash, in the past like good 10 years roughly, in comic books, they're like one like the few newest characters that I thought like not only that I thought were cool as far as power wise and like look, but their background is like you can tell when the writer took their time and and some effort put it into building a new character from the ground up that doesn't seem shoehorned in, uh, or forced. It's like they, because if you've been reading like Tom King or like whoever, like Batman in the past, like at least uh, since the events of the Joker War, I'm pretty sure it was Tom King who wrote that. Uh, if you've been reading like stuff from like the Joker War up until now, Punchline is probably like my one of my uh, uh hate that freaking character. It's like forcing. That's a example of forcing a character down everybody's throat. Because it's like I get like writers, you know, they don't get paid much as far as like the comic book companies, because the comic book companies don't pay their writers all that well when they should. So they try to do like a workaround by forcing new characters that hopefully will be introduced in like TV shows and movies, so they can get revenue for that. And it seems like you're forcing it instead of letting it happen organically. And Punchline is a perfect example of that, because he's just like a discount Harley Quinn and does not freaking work. And you trying to force another Harley Quinn and does not freaking work. So it's a polar opposite with what Gore the God Butcher and Godspeed, who I thought was ingenious characters, and their motivations is just like, done very, very well. So the movie opens with Gore in the desert on his home planet, and it's like just like in the comics, it's like harsh landscape. And unlike in the comics, where Gore is like already like uh has like a wavering faith of his deity, in the movie, he's actually devout, to the end where his daughter dies in his arms, and he hears whispers that calling out to him to this oasis that wasn't there before. And he sees this god, who I believe is supposed to be his race's god, and typically you would expect like Gore to say like, be angry, like, where were you and all the other stuff. No, he's just happy he's there. He's like, oh, you're here. You're actually here. Oh, and but it turns out the guy is just a complete asshole, throwing fruit at him, and Gore's like, my daughter died for you. And it's like, oh, that's good, that's what your people are good for. And like, I can always get more followers. And him and some kind of nymphs or whatever, a flower, nymphs or something like that in the garden, sitting there just giggling at him, and he's just distraught. He lost his only child, and and he's getting mocked. And like, and Gore's like, I just renounce you then. And this angers the god, and like, he got Gore by the throat. And you see like this fallen creature, and there's the Necro Sword. And I kind of wish that the Necro Sword looked, bigger, instead of like a very thin claymore. Because I don't know, it's like, not like I need it to be like big and imposing, like, crazy, like, even like Sephiroth's sword is like intimidating, but somewhere in between, like that thin blade and something like Cloud Strife's sword, like something in between. I gotta expect the sword to be a little bit more imposing, because it's like a very rinky-dink off the dollar store shelf kind of sword, and it's like, I kind of expect a little bit more, like at least somewhere similar to like you see in the comics, where it's a little bit more, got a little bit more girth to it, like a little meat on the blade, you know what I mean? So Gore gets the sword in his hand, and stabs his god in the throat, and decrees that, fine, all gods must die, because he's being like infected by this sword now, but it's just feeding off his already anger that he has. And it makes sense for someone who's so devout that now he's come to this epiphany. He should be just as anti-God as he was, uh, devout previously. So he's on like just like a straight up mission, just to kill all gods, because by all rights, in his eyes, they failed him. They failed his daughter. So next, you fast forward with like Core, regaling this tale like a bard to these children about the tales of Thor. Not unlike many Viking kind of stuff going on. Like in the past, where like the regaling the mythic tales of so and so. You know, Thor and his like life from when he's a baby. He's like literally baptized in combat. Up to the point through the events of Endgame, and uh, after seeing that bit gives me some, well, at least all the way to the end of the movie, it gives me clarity, or at least not, I won't say clarity, but it's like a nice showing of Thor, and just like with Scarlet Witch and her arc throughout the time since we first saw her in Age of Ultron up until the point of Doctor Strange 2, she has an impressive, roller coaster of an arc. Thor, just the same. I mean, like, he started as like a, just like egotistical, just like what Gore probably hates. It's like these gods that don't do their duty and their responsibility as gods, and he's so egotistical and self-serving. Then he goes to like, fighting for the people as a hero, and to the point of sacrificing his home to save the people in Ragnarok, and like then going through a deep depression after failing to kill Thanos properly and losing half of the universe, including his brother for real this time, well, at least for real to his knowledge, and while like Loki's off in the TVA situation. Then then bringing everybody back, but he's gone through, like, people joke about Fat Thor, but he was depressed. He felt like he lost. Just like with everybody else, they felt like the bitter loss. Like, it's not like a normal loss, where they can easily come around. This is like a heavy duty loss that he could easily stop, but he caused so many deaths because he was at that very end of Infinity War. He's still just arrogant enough as a god. He still behaves like an arrogant guy at the end of the day, thinking like, oh, I'll just wound him so I can get my last word in, like like just to posturate. I think that's a word. Like, I told you die. I told you I'll get you back for this. You should have aimed for the head, and it's like, no. And just like that look that still gets me to this day, from when I saw it in the theater, because I think everybody was just like, their reactions like, you mother, and it's like, it's done. It was like you got your second chance, but it's too late. He already snapped his fingers and destroyed the stones. But then like the they going back in time and setting things right, and then he's off with the Guardians of the Galaxy. And I loved like Hemsworth and Pratt and their little back and forth, because it's so freaking funny, because he's back in like God body, and it's just like Star-Lord, just like, he just so sick of Thor, and like he just is taking up the like the attention, because he's Thor, and he's a rep now, and it's like he's kicking ass and taking names, and it's like it's like and then like Star-Lord sees it, Thor is just like, n- uh, you feel like he's like missing something out of life, because he's not. I mean, he had Valkyrie taking care of the Asgardians on Earth, which they build like a new Asgard, where it's like a tourist attraction now, and it's like people come by, and it's like like a famous place in Norway, but uh and like him and the Guardians stop these bird aliens from taking over uh uh these blue aliens that seems somewhat similar to those aliens in the Jason Aaron run, where this little alien girl prays to Thor because she hears the tales of Thor, and like you know and like because like they have like a drought or something like that, and Thor comes by in the comic, and because he's the god of thunder and lightning, and so he brings rain, but he has to look, because you can check out the full details in my video of covering Jason Aaron run, but he asked the little girls, like, or at least not the little girl, but one of the elders, like, you know, where are your gods? Like, I shouldn't have to come here to do their duty, you know, because like I come answering the prayers of this girl, because but like I shouldn't have to do this. Where's your gods? And just like in the comics, one of the elders like kind of you know seated like almost like the same line. It's like, well, we tried to thank you for you and the guardians for come helping us, but we tried praying to our gods, but they haven't heeded our call. So we had to like send a distraction or something like that, blah blah blah. And here's some screaming goats for you. Which, by the way, I know some people find them annoying, and I get it, but it's just like it's not annoying in certain parts. They funny in the right time. It's like the perfect timing of being annoying, if that makes any sense. And that he's like Jesus Christ. And those screaming goats reminded me of Benedict Cumberbatch's The Grinch, where that screaming goat is almost the exact same scream, and it's like, and it's like, okay, so we got this now, but it's just funny. It's not like every scene, but just whenever the ghosts are called, they're just screaming, and it's just funny. Uh, so it's like it's like part of my brain sees how annoying it is, but my body is just like involuntarily just finds it funny. It's like a weird combo in your body, at least for me. Uh, but yeah, so uh, on the Guardian ship, there was like a distress signal from Sif. We get Lady Sif back now, Jamie Alexander, I think her name is, and like there's been like a mass, murder from many gods, and there's one little clip of a video showing like some gods being hanged on meat hooks, which mirrors in the Jason Aaron one, where Thor comes into the sanctum of these blue aliens, their deities, and he finds the first like carnage left in like Gore the God Butcher's wake. He's hanging these blue aliens, gods that never showed up because they're all dead, because they're literally been like just butchered. Uh, so I like they added that little, just like with that big monster in the snowdrift that Thor sees, that's lifted straight off from the panels of the God Butcher arc. But because we haven't seen Sif since Dark World, or at least technically not since season one of Agents of Shield, which still to this day she never brought up, hey, I bumped into Agent Coulson, but I haven't heard from for 10 years, but he's alive from what I remember, but he's not alive now technically. But it's a whole thing if you ever watch Agents of Shield. But he realized he has to take care of this, but he sends the Guardians out to investigate the other areas, while he and Korg with the ghosts go find Lady Sith, because all the Warriors 3 and most of Asgard was decimated through the events of Hela in Ragnarok. But um, I find it like not that I expected the Guardians to like take off the bulk of the show. I knew they was gonna stay here that long, but it's like they pieced out pretty quick. It's like, but at least Star Lord served like a purpose, so far as like because Thor just like had this all he went through. He even tried meditating and stuff like that, but he's like he's trying to shut himself off because he's trying not to be hurt no more. But Peter Quill has to let him know, like, look, it's better to feel shitty or feel like shit, than to not feel anything at all. It's a crummy way of like, saying like, it's better to just to feel hurt than not just feel nothing. But you get the point, and you get a little funny little moments with like him and Peter Quill, and it's like Chris Hemsworth has perfect timing so far as like just comedy wise, and most people find that annoying. Now, I want to point out, because I think this is the first time I actually understood what people are talking about like Marvel's MCU's nasty habit of taking like a serious moment and insert joke formula. It didn't bother me, but this is the first time I actually saw, okay, I see now for the first time. I'm pretty sure I see other stuff, but it's just like, I don't know, it didn't click or register until this movie. And it's like, oh, okay, now I see what you're talking about. But like I said, it didn't bother me, but I finally like, okay, I caught it. I understood. But I still find it enjoyable. So Korg and Thor go out, finds the last known location of Sith, and sees her, laid out on the battlefield with her arm cut off, but she's still alive. So he takes her back to New Asgard. Uh, 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 but paralleling what he's doing, going back a little bit in the past, where you find out, you see Jane Foster, Natalie Portwoman, and she's, finding out she got cancer. She being like, she hanging out with Darcy and stuff like that. And like, it's just like, I didn't cover this arc. I kind of regret not covering the second part of the Jason Aaron run, because it involves, because like it's not mixing in with the Gore the God Butcher thing, because that's like in the comics there's like a two separate arcs, and I guess I didn't like consider that oh yeah, also they bringing in Jane Foster Mighty Thor stuff. But the second arc covers like her picking up the hammer and using it to relieve herself, at least temporarily, of her cancer. But in this movie, just like in the comics, is no magic cure to this. And like other people, I'm glad they didn't, because it feel kind of disrespectful to people who are experiencing or experienced or know people or knew people who had cancer, and it's like oh, you just pick up this magic thing and it cures your ailment completely. And it's like, this is not like Deadpool, Because even Deadpool, his cancer is still there, but his healing factor is curing him faster than the cancer can kill him. So even then, it's like, it's not like no end all cure to it. Uh, so I'm glad it wasn't like a cheat like that. But uh, you realize that the hammer, yes, is temporarily curing her, but it's only staving off, because just like in the comics, not only is curing her of the cancer, but it's also expelling the chemotherapy. The chemotherapy is expelling all that. So it's like bringing her back to square one, all over again. Currently in the comics, she's in remission, so it's like she doesn't have cancer anymore. But she's also Valkyrie in the comics now, and not Mighty Thor anymore. Um, uh, uh, she, uh, because she's like in stage 4, so it's like I think that's the no hope version. Like, I don't say no hope, but it's just like I think that's the more serious stage. Uh, so she decides, oh, I'll find the hammer. She goes, oh, which in her condition, I'm surprised she made it all the way to Norway to go find, like, because they had the broken pieces of the Mjolnir hammer after Hela smashed it to bits, and is in this little protective like case, because even in pieces, nobody can lift it. They literally have to pull out the ground and put it into like a little casing in order to be able to put in like a thing, like to be looked at like a this whole museum type of exhibit thing. So when she goes near it, it activates and it turns her into Mighty Thor. And it's now the poor woman is just jacked. MCU like just has like a good track record of just taking people. Not that like Nelly wasn't fit before, but she is just like they just like Paul Rudd and Chris Pratt are like the two other prime examples of like they not bad looking, but like they just become shredded. It's like that's insane. And like I really want that MCU kind of die, and it's kind of easy when you don't have like other stuff to do, because like just like a everyday Joe. So it's like it's difficult to squeeze in time. I'd be lucky enough to get like at least one day out of the week to go to the gym to do like a couple of hours of a workout. But most of their job requires them to stay fit. So they practice lines and go to like rehearsal and all the other stuff, and taking up most of the other time, working out and like training and stuff like that for the roles that they're doing. Which I would love to just let me have that. Shoot. But anywho, Thor, comes back, and you see like they do enough. I guess this is like a thing now, since the Six and Ragnarok had the moment where like they got Matt Damon and one of the other Hemsworth brothers, not Liam, the other one, reenacting the situation between the events of Ragnarok, and you got Melissa McCarthy jumping out as Hela, which is I kind of find it corny when I did it in like Ragnarok, but it's grown a little bit of for me in this film. But like because I got kicked out just because I did not expect Melissa McCarthy. It's just like Sam Neill as like playing Odin in the play, and then he sprinkle. It's a play, so it's like a high school play, and they sprinkling because he's just like Odin fade away and like magic particles. He's using like little gold dust to simulate him like withering away, like oh, and it's just like it's corny, and like they, Matt Damon is straight up like a thespian, and it's like, going to Valkyrie, and it's like, should we get to work on the, next play? I have a few ideas. She didn't say no, and then it's like, just like, just go off, and it's like, that's funny. I'm kind of glad they kind of lean into it, because people responded very well to the last time they did it. Um, so Thor came back, and like uh because Sif told Thor, it's like he's going, like, this Gore the God Butcher, he's killing all gods, and he's coming to Earth next. And so they hurry up to Norway, and like, Gore sent out these little shadow demon things, which, because if you've been reading, like, things about like the Necro Sword, it's also ironic because it's part of it's Null's weapon. Null is the god of the symbiotes, and it's like, okay, we know where this is going. Like, at least people who are in the know with the comics, that Necro Sword belongs to Null, god of the symbiotes, and we all saw, like, in events of Spider-Man No Way Home, that now we got like symbiote, at least a piece of it now stuck here in the MCU universe, which I still kind of bummed that we didn't keep. That's the one little knock I give. I give, like, No Way Home, because like Tom Hardy and Tom Holland said multiple times how they love to be in the same movie together, have Venom and Spider-Man fight each other and stuff like that. And it's like, he's sending Tom Hardy back to the Sony universe, and it's like freaking bizarre to me. It's like you're keeping J. Jonah Jameson, and for some reason you taking Vulture away and put him in like the Sony universe so you can make your so Sinister Six, and it's like, yeah, it's like, and it's like, God, it's like you couldn't just keep him here, and you seem like you wasted Venom. Which, by the way, I know I'm going on a tangent here, but how psyched would you be if, like, instead of Tom Hardy Venom talking with that bartender, he's sitting down and having like a drink with Topher Grace's Venom, and him just warning him, like, look, if you're meeting like a Spider-Man, he's an enemy. Kill him immediately. Don't just like, no hesitation. You off that sucker, because like he killed me, so you need to go after him before he kills you too. That kind of something like that, and just go back and forth between two versions of Eddie Brock. Always thought that would have been like a better kind of like an end credit for that. But like, Topher Grace's Venom go back to the Sony universe and have like Tom Hardy's Venom stay in the MCU. Because back in the Sony universe, his life is crap now. So it's kind of like he got technically a fresh start in like the MCU. Anyway, so yeah, the Necro Sword, which is ironic that Gore, the God Butcher, who hates all gods, is using a weapon belonging to a god of a symbiote. So I thought that was pretty ironic. So it's like you seeing these little creatures, and it's like, God, it'd be so easy for one of them to turn to a venomized Asgardian or something like that. It's very easy that could have easily been done. Just like, of course they don't call them that, but we all know what they will be. It's like you see, some of these creatures taking over people. But technically, in the comics, Gore the God Butcher never did that with the sword. But anywho, Thor bumps into Jane, who's wielding Mjolnir, and because she's reassembled it, even though it looked like in broken pieces, but it comes apart, and it turns to like shrapnel, like that shreds to people, and like returns and reforms itself, and she using it in a very creative way, and it's like awesome. And Thor just like psyched, but also befuddled, after everything that happened between each other, and like you see like a flashback on like because all we get from Thor Ragnarok is that like these two are broken up, but we never see like that transpired. And kudos to Taika Waititi because in just like a short montage, he kind of retconned the kind of crappy chemistry that we saw from the first two Thor films between Natalie Portman and Chris Hemsworth. That not many people were feeling like that, especially in Dark World. But he managed to, you see like Taika kind of put into like this little short montage of what their relationship was. They like when Thor, whenever he was on Earth, he's with Jane, and they're like having lunch and dinner together. They're going on Halloween and like rollerblading. It was like they have like a real relationship, and it's like having a great time with each other. It's like, and you feel that even if it's like a short montage, you feel that relationship is way better than you see from like Natalie Portman in the Star Wars films, which is like even the first two Thor films. It's like what Taika Waititi did, he did better than anybody who, like, I forgot who directed the first two Thor films, but did better than them and did better than George Lucas in the Star Wars films. Taika managed to achieve what these other directors, the other three directors, never pulled off with Natalie Portman for some reason. They're great directors in their own right. They just can't, like, well, less so with George Lucas, but whatever. But it's just like Taika managed to pull off a solid like chemistry between Natalie Portman and a co-star, and it's like it works. Mostly because I believe like he makes working on set so much fun that he managed to pull it off. Not that the other sets probably wasn't fun either, but it's just like it's just like I don't know. It just seems funner on Taika's set, which it'd be kind of interesting to like be on set with Taika Waititi and being directed by him, and it's like I imagine I would have just as much fun. And it's like it doesn't feel like work to me because from what I heard, there's been times when Taika Waititi just rips up the script and they just like start riffing, and I think that's where the whole jokes fall flat sometimes for people, because it just seems like we feel that when the jokes work, they work, but when they fall flat, it's apparent. And I think that's where the whole, maybe not all the time, but where those instances where he just like lets people riff on a particular scene, and it's like if it falls flat, it's like whatever. But so now Jane and Thor fight off these shadow creatures, and then Thor dukes it out with Gore, and he recognizes the sword, but Gore is no match for Thor, and especially with like Valkyrie and Jane backing him up. So it's like and it's like I'm glad they don't, the sword doesn't beef up Gore the God Butcher, and like so he can match them in strength. He can't. He just he just like angry, and he's got like a sword that's killed gods, and you just need to make the blade hit on contact in a lethal way, and he can summon shadow creatures, and that's the extent of the power. So he decides, okay, because he needs Stormbreaker, that's what he was after, but he can't take it by force because he doesn't have that strength to really duke it out with Thor himself. But he goes after the children of Asgard, and kidnaps him so he can, and takes him to the Shadow Realm, which is kind of ironic because when I went to see this movie, is right in that on that day when I found out that the creator of the Yu-Gi-Oh franchise, Kazuki Takahashi, passed away. So you got like something like the Shadow Realm that's like, that's a thing in Yu-Gi-Oh, and it's like, God, it's like, why you gotta say Shadow Realm? But I already did like a couple of videos, uh, speaking my mind and about the whole uh, Kazuka Takahashi, which if you're a fan of Yu-Gi-Oh, you can check out my video about my thoughts, about him and his life and what he done uh, for the fans. Uh, anyway, so uh, Thor, Valkyrie, and Jane, uh, get on a boat and use Stormbreaker as like a navigational system because it possesses the ability of the Bifrost to take them to places, but it's random. It can't focus. So they use it as like a sailing mechanism to, with like the ghost pulling the boat so they could take them to where they need to go directly because they need to rally all the other gods to form this army to take on Gore the God Butcher. Uh, 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 and you see this funny moment because like Stormbreaker is like clearly like you see Stormbreaker like this is like Thor is trying to like talk with his hammer and like he testing him, just checking to make sure he can still lift it. He can still lift it and everything like that. You see Stormbreaker is leaning off into the camera, like into the scene, and it's like kill like oh hey Stormbreaker, it's not what you think. We're just talking. And it's like this jealous weapon, and it's like that part got a lot of laughs from me. I love that. It's so funny. But yeah, so they go off to the omnipotent city, which in the comics is like a massive library, with the books of stories in history of every god in like the multiverse. I don't know about the multiverse. It's just in like the universe, uh, uh, in like in all of past, present, and future. But in the movie, it's just like a big kind of like a pocket dimension where like it's kind of like a UN summit with but instead of like leaders of nations, it's like gods of from all these different religions from these different races on different planets coming together, and the leader is Zeus, the Greek god, and it's played by Russell Crowe, and like he's put on this crazy thick Greek accent, and Thor is having like a moment because like he looks up, he loves his father, but he looks up at like Zeus as like his personal hero. And he's kind of like model himself after him because he's god of lightning, and so he's the god of, he calls himself the god of thunder, like just to have like a little thing between him and his idol, and he's talking about like, you don't interrupt Zeus when he's making his entrances. He's so famed for his entrances. And Russell Crowe put on his thick Greek accent. He's wearing like a skirt and everything like that, and it's like very Greek, and it's like it's hilarious. And so Thor, I mean, like while the ladies are just ready to like just wreak havoc, and it's like, and Thor has to be the one with the cool head. It's like, whoa, 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 whoa. We could just talk with him. We don't need to have heads roll. Calm down. So he goes out, talks to like Zeus, and tell him like, hey, I come here to assemble an army. Gore the God Butcher is out there. He's killing all gods, and we need to make an army to take him on because he's kidnapped as guardian children. uh, and like I need your help. And Zeus is like, yeah, I heard about Gore the God Butcher, and we're all just gonna stay here because he can't find us. Uh, and those Asgardians kids, they're your responsibility. And it's like you know, uh, every god is only in charge of their own uh worshippers, and it's like we don't interfere with each other's people. So it's like, and it's like well, that's done, time for the orgy. And it's like and I think that's the first time you actually hear like the word orgy in a Marvel movie. uh, but and then oh yeah, you get the the whole flick thing, and you actually get to see Chris Hemsworth's ass cheeks. And I never thought I'll live to see the day where it's like I actually know what Chris Hemsworth's ass looked like, but that's seared into my brain now. So like now I know what Chris Hemsworth's ass looked like. Uh, and he got like a tattoo of like Loki's name on his back. I thought that's hilarious. Of course, he still misses his brother because, to his knowledge, his brother is dead. Of course, like in the whole TVA situation, he's technically not. Which, if you expect Loki to show up in this, he's not. Which I kind of half hoped that there was gonna be like at least some end credit about him leading to like the season 2 of Loki series, but there isn't. But Thor is just like, uh, just pissed now because as he mentions to the Asgardian children in a different scene, it's like, never meet your heroes, kids. And it's like, dude, it's like I looked up to you. Why are you not Why are you not going to help me? I'm asking for your help. And this is the part where it's like, the themes. I wish they kind of, because you expect Gore to have a lot more scenes than he did in this, because he showed like at least maybe 5, 6 scenes out of the film, and they're all great scenes. Kristen Bell knocked out of the park with this role, but it's just I didn't get, and I think this is a lot of people's complaints I heard so far. There wasn't enough butchering from a guy who's named God Butcher. And I thought that was kind of weird. We only see one on-screen death from him, and all the other deaths he caused, we only seen like the aftermath from images. And it's like, God, that's not enough. But anyway, you get to see like, Thor's disappointment, just like with Gore's disappointment that these, gods that they look up to, well, in different ways, but they still look up to, just sit on their asses and not do stuff when they're asked upon to help. And it's just like, and even Gore, who tells Valkyrie like, oh, when your sisters died, after like we heard about what happened to the other Valkyries in Ragnarok, when your sisters died, did you call out for your leaders to help, your gods to help you? Did they show up? No. See, we're just alike. And it's like those themes in Samaria, the themes, of like how people perceive gods and they're shirking their duties for such a long time. And it's like that's run parallels with what we saw in Eternals, with them just sitting on the sidelines while not doing nothing, even though prior, up until like the certain point with like I don't know, like the Spaniards or conquistadors running rampant or something like that, with like the Mayan people. I think that's what the timeline was when they broken up and went into hiding. The Eternals was looked upon like gods for thousands of years, but eventually they just like not did much. And we all make that joke. It's like, so you didn't come when Thanos wiped out half of the universe, but it's, oh, Divas is not involved, so we can't do crap. Like, the fuck you can't. Icarus by himself could like laid out Thanos probably very quickly. at least be on the same par as like him and Captain Marvel. They could easily like pull that guy right in half. Uh, but then you got like Moon Knight and the Egyptian guys. They sat out because like oh, they not worshiping us anymore. So we decided to just like leave them be and go to the Overvoid, is where like the Egyptian gods in the Marvel universe go to as their little pocket universe where they just hang out and just chooses not to interfere one way or the other in the mortals' affairs, except for like Khonshu, who in the comics he kind of like went overboard and try to wreak havoc in his pursuit of justice. But yeah, it's like okay, you can see where like Gore's perspective from like the events. Every time we see a god involved into the MCU, none of them, except for Thor, by far so far has been like, other than Thor, every other guy just sit on the sidelines, not interfering. At least, maybe not as far as like Earthlings bickering amongst each other, but at the very least, when half the universe, especially Earth, gets wiped out, you'd think, okay, all hands on fucking deck. But like, clearly, you guys have sit on the sidelines after Thanos wiped out half the universe. Maybe you guys wasn't affected, but it's just like, because you're not necessarily alive, you're just on a higher plane, but you obviously should be privy, because most of y'all have like majority of you should have omnipotence, so you should know what's going on. So none of you did shit. So that's kind of speaks to Gore's ill will towards guys, because like, you have worshipers, you want to be worshipped, you want sacrifice, and you want like your laws obeyed and blah blah blah, but you're not holding up your own end of the bargain of this worship. It's very one-sided, and when we needed you guys the most, you weren't there. And that's where he like like you see like Thor, and you see it's like he experiencing it. And I kind of wish like it leaned into this a bit more, where like Thor sees, he won't agree with Gore, he sees his point of view because his own hero, who is a god, Zeus, chose not to come to his help come help him when he's at his hour of need, and it's disappointing. And I'm kind of curious, will Marvel cover, because like in the Marvel comics, there is the Christian God, but he's called the one above all, and like not Mephisto, but the true devil is called the one below all. And I'm curious if the MCU will tackle that at some point, maybe towards like getting close to the end of this next saga. They might at some point bring up, because especially we got to bring up Ghost Rider, because we already have like Robert Reyes, but like people consider like Mephisto as like the devil, but it's like then it gets confusing when you got like one below all who's supposed to be like the true devil, and like Mephisto is like just like a higher level of a demon. But whatever, I guess the MCU can just use him as like the devil, because it gets kind of confusing, because for such a long time, Stan Lee and Jack Kirby and people like that in the past couldn't really like, because they didn't want to upset like the Christian folk, and they didn't want to really like use like the devil kind of thing, and like in their way of the way they perceive like God or whatnot. Even though there's been certain times when they did do that, but it's very rare. And there's one Spider-Man comic that I vaguely remember where Spider-Man meets God, one above all, and he kind of looks like Keanu Reeves. That's why I always advocate, I want Keanu Reeves, if Keanu Reeves ever to be introduced in the MCU, he has to play the one above all, because he looks too much like him in the comics. Just like, Ultimate Nick Fury looks exactly, even though it was purposely drawn to look like Sam Jackson, it had to be Sam Jackson. So like this has to be Keanu Reeves. Uh, and DC has a Lucifer Morningstar, and like I'm not sure if they ever gotten any in trouble with any kind of Christian, overzealous people, but they lean into Lucifer Morningstar, which you saw from like the Netflix Lucifer show. He is the devil of the DC universe, one of the most powerfulest characters in the DC universe, at least in the top 5. Uh, but so yeah, I really wish they kind of lean into like, because they spent too much time with certain shots that I don't think was needed, where they could have just used the time with Gore, and like maybe like him like talking with Thor about like, hey, they did talk about it, but it's kind of like they touched on it, but they don't like spend at least an extra minute or two with it, so you can, because yeah, is overall jokey, but when you need like those serious moments, those was like that I felt was needed. Anyway, yeah, Thor got so because Zeus got so fed up with like Thor and his friends, taking down his like Spartan warriors and like causing a ruckus. So he throws his lightning bolt, seemingly kills Korg, which I did not think I saw coming, but he didn't really die. He's a face left, but Thor thought he died, and so he's just like filled with God power now, and just like snatches Zeus's lightning bolt right out of the air and sends it right back and shoots it through his heart and causing a fall. And I was like, whoa, did not see that one coming. I really expect like, oh, okay, because prior to the film coming out, I was dead certain that Russell Crowe will die in this, because like he's probably just gonna be a one-off in the MCU as like Zeus. It was a great casting choice, but I thought like, okay, Gore the God Butcher, because I thought he was gonna probably like at some point crash into this. It'll be because to show he is a God Butcher, crash into Omnipotent City and start tearing shit up and killing at least like a group of gods, so you can show how the serious nature of this threat. And like I thought like, okay, Zeus will probably get murked by him to show how serious the threat is, but that didn't happen. But it still like caught me off guard to see like, oh shit, like Thor just killed Zeus. And also, by the way, we get to see like a short little image of Bast, the Black Panther's god, sitting right in front of Valkyrie and Lady Thor. But it's like I kind of thought we would get like at least a conversation with her, at least a little bit. All she did was like shushes them behind her because they talking behind her and while she's trying to listen to Zeus. And it's like, dang, you got like the Panther god sitting right there. You don't do nothing, and you got all these interesting gods, and one is a dragon, and it's like, it's cool, but it's like I kind of expected more from these gods. You see like Korg's god sitting in a chair, looked like the Iron Throne for a second. Don't know if that was a callback or not, but yeah. So Thor like and Valkyrie takes Zeus's lightning bolt because they needed to for extra power to take on Gore in the Shadow Realm, and they go flying off on their screaming goats. But then like Jane tells Thor that she has cancer, and like she just and like Hammer's not helping, and we realize from the montage that Thor, you forget like this is Odin's son. He's he inadvertently, or at least unknowingly, enchanted his own hammer on top of his father's enchantment, and he just like uh told his hammer to like you make sure you look out for Jane for me. And so like you see runes pop up, and it's like that's why the hammer spoke to Jane, because like it felt her in need because of the cancer, so that's why it works for her, and it keeps the cancer at bay so she can be healthy, at least temporarily. But it's also killing her, at least in the comics, is like put everything to back to square one with her chemo, or at least with her cancer, because now it's like aggressively trying to attack her again because it's been like held back. It's not like 100% cure. So they and this is like an awesome uh shot. You get plenty of awesome shots in this film. You get space dolphins, and that's pretty dope. But then there's a funny moment. Everybody loves this moment when like the Screaming Ghost crash right into this moon thing, and it's like it's very cartoony, like those old Mickey Mouse style cartoons or something like from Roger Rabbit, where it's like something literally crashes into a moon and lands right in that eye kind of situation. It's almost kind of like that, where it's just like it's not like you're landing through the atmosphere and landing onto a surface of a continent or something like that. No, you landing right smack dab like a cartoon on top of a planet, and it's like, and you just hear the ghost scream. Ah! It was like, God, it got a big laugh. I love that scene. But they go into this tent thing because the kids are not in their cages no more, and you also get to meet like Heimdall's son Axel, who starting to his power to like be able to call out to people across planes of existence and whatnot. But Jane sees this little parchment detailing that Gore needs Stormbreaker in order to take him. It's like a key to taking him to the this kind of deity. I forgot, like this elder. Let's call it elder god, but it's like this being that's been there since the beginning of the Marvel timeline. The being known as Eternity. It's kind of like this shadowy, and I love the way it looks in live action. This shadowy figure that is in silhouette, but you see like stars and planets and stuff inside it, and like the eyes are just little like stars. And like if you manage to reach Eternity, you can make a wish, one wish, and Eternity will grant it. Is that powerful? And like obviously, somebody named Gore the God Butcher, what do you think he'll wish for? And that's how he will get all the gods in one fell swoop. Unlike in the comics where he builds like this big god bomb that kind of would do the same thing, but in the movie is a little bit simpler, a little simplified, which I kind of prefer over the comic one. But so they all three take on Gore, and it's kind of like I love this black and white because in the shadow realm it's like this devoid of all color, and I love this look because this is where like Gore says most powerful, because like he's using like a shadowy inky kind of power, and they he gets them on the ropes, but as Valkyrie ends up getting stabbed, and he's like, okay, we gotta make a full retreat, and he's trying to call the Bifrost, but Gore manages to snatch the axe out of Thor's hand before the three of them take off, and so now he's setting up like to go to the edge of the universe. So now like, okay, Valkyrie, I think you said her kidney got pierced, so she's out of commission for this fight, and Jane as well, because now her cancer is just like it's like really kicking, getting to her now, and Thor is telling her like, you gotta stay in bed, like I'll deal with this myself. I love you. I don't want to lose you. And it's like, it's so, like, I like this because, like, when somebody dealing with cancer, of course, you facing your mortality, a God, and like, people like, go to like praying, and, most of the time, man, it's like, that's usually when you need like prayer the most because you want a deity to like help you in some shape or form. You just want, like, you prefer like just to be cancer free, but or at least the chemo to work, so you can live a little longer because you're not ready to go, but at least do, at least something to ease the burden or something like that. That's where you kind of like, you got this parallels with like Gore trying to kill all the gods because they don't do nothing, but like Thor is there, and it's like, I like Thor's reaction when he's like, he's, he's a doctor is telling him about like, the cancer is like, you know, it's like, doing his thing, and as soon as she walks off, he just punches like a vending machine. It's like, oh, somebody like broke a vending machine. I just got all these snacks for you. Kelly, like, he's always been masking his insecurities with like goofy jokes and, like all his other stuff, but it's like Kelly, he's like scared of losing her, and all the things like he's been through with her, and it's like he like he tells her, you pick up that damn hammer again, you will die, and I can't live myself with that. So he kisses her. He takes Zeus's boat from Valkyrie, and like he, takes off to track down the kids and bring them back home and stop Gore. And he finds the children, and it's like you get this awesome scene where he's like, he's using that same ability that helped give Jane her Thor powers. He does the same thing with the kids when like he's telling you to pick any weapon, that you can find here, and I'll do the rest. And like he's like temporarily, you are worthy, and you shall possess the power of Thor. And he temporarily gives Odin Force powers to these children, and they just kicking ass because like he needed an army, and like he got it, and they just kicking like all these little ink monsters asses. And you see this little girl with this like bunny, and like just like Thor was like, so like attached to, the hammer, she's, just as attached to this bunny, and she using it to just like lightning bolt these creatures to death. And it's so awesome. Nice, just like a nice little scene where like, Thor and Gore is just duking it out, but still not enough. While Stormbreaker is like being forced to unlock the door to eternity, but then Lady Thor comes in, and like a lot of people thought this was cringy, and I kind of agree. Where it's like the name is Mighty Thor, or you can call me Dr. Jane Foster. And it's like, oh, yeah. And just like with like, oh, I'm trying to come up with like a catchphrase, and it's like, okay, because these are the two spots where like it clicked in my head. It was like, okay, I can see where like the Marvel insert joke here thing comes into place. Like I see it. For the first time, it clicks it with me. And it's like, oh god, that is not needed whatsoever. I mean, I can let the whole joke with the catchphrase thing slide a bit, but this whole you can call me Dr. Jane Foster. I was like, Jesus Christ. But anyway, you see Thor giving Jane this look because she mentions like, I rather like, I'm not going to spend the last moments of my life on a doctor's bed. I'm going to fight alongside you and make my life mean something. Anybody who's probably experienced cancer probably can understand that kind of sentiment. I never experienced cancer myself, never, knock on wood, hopefully never will. But you probably get the sentiment, like, like because you see that in a lot of films and TV shows where like people rather like, die on their feet rather than like, waste away on a bed. And so they stop Gore, crush the sword because that's infecting him because like it's killing him, but it's like he doesn't care because he's want to achieve his mission, by killing all gods, and just like Lady Thor's hammer is killing her inadvertently, the Necrosaur is doing the exact same thing to Gore. Once these two items are destroyed, well, not the hammer, but like once the Necrosaur is destroyed and the hammer is out of Jane's hands, now they're like taking their last few minutes of life at this point. But the door is unlocked. He goes up to a attorney, and Thor is telling him like, like I'm sorry. I'm pretty sure I'm probably misremembering. I'm pretty sure he mentions like I'm sorry what happened to your daughter, and it's like but it's like if you he's telling him like love is what matters at the end of the day. Like fight with hate with love or something like that. Love was a component to the sentence, but he mentions like, if I was you, I will not waste my wish by causing more death and destruction. I want to use them for save the person I love, and pretty much signaling to Gore to like use his wish to bring back his daughter because that's what it was all this was for. And Thor is like, I'm going to, if you're going to kill all gods, I'm going to spend my last moments with the person I love the most. And Gore sees this, and it's like, I guess it registers to him like, this is the only god that probably understood what it means, for a mortal, what's important. And it's like, he wished his daughter to come back to life. She does in an awesome shot. And he's dying, and Lady Thor is like, dying as well, and it's like, they say their goodbyes and their I love yous, and she disappears in a particle way, which is kind of weird. Maybe it's kind of something to do with her being like Thor for like a bit of time. So technically, by definition, she's like de facto Viking, so she goes to Valhalla. That's where she went. But Gore in his last moments, it's like despite him wanting to kill all gods, he took a chance on this one god, probably the only one that probably gets it, and asked, like, please take care of my daughter. And it's like, he's finally like, he's trusting the God to do at least one thing. Like, okay, I'm going to give, on my last moments, I'm going to give this particular God a chance to, just to look at, at least to help my daughter. Because it didn't happen the first time around when I asked for that in the beginning. So this time I want to, give like this God like a crack at it. So Thor now as a surrogate dad, just like Odin was to Loki, he's taken upon like like an orphan child of an enemy and raising her as his own, which is like a cool moment. And it's like, see like an awesome one with like, Thor being like a total dad to this little girl and teaching her, using her powers to defend, the innocent and stuff like that. And it ends as like Thor, love, and thunder. And so you see like the whole meaning behind all that. I dug it. It's like and like you get two end credit scenes. One with like Natalie Portman, Jane Foster going to like Valhalla meeting like Idris Elba's Heimdall and stuff like that. Then you get like another one with Zeus, who's all right, didn't get killed, because like without the Necrosaur, you can't kill a god necessarily unless you, I don't know, cut his head off or something like that, or at least because technically gods probably will be like strong enough to kill another god, but you probably have to take off the head just to be like certain, or just obliterate them all together in like quick fashion. But you hear this dialogue with Zeus talking about like, oh, they used to worship us. They used to respect us. Now they got uh these other heroes they look up to, and so he sends uh because he felt uh insulted by Thor and like disrespected. He's sending out Hercules. Got Hercules into the MCU now finally, and probably in the next Thor film it'll be Hercules versus Thor. And of course, at this point in time, Hercules will be acting similarly to what Thor was in the first movie. So you got like a more evolved Thor going up against someone that used to that acts the way he used to. So it'd be a nice little parallels and what that come about. And that might be Chris Hemsworth's last and Taika Waititi's last solo Thor movie when that happens. Uh, but yeah, so it'll be like kind of ironic, like, oh, you're mad because like nobody respected you no more. You didn't do your fucking job, and you got like a literal butcher coming after all you guys, nearly wiping you all out, and like you're ungrateful, but decides like, oh, you didn't, you got all these other heroes who's not gods. So of course, like, when people need help, you got these superheroes now answering the call, and of course you might, because gods and their jealousy and stuff like that, of course you easily become offended. But it's like now it's like, oh, it's like war on superheroes, more in particularly Thor himself. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Like I said, Dark World is probably my like lowest ranked, like easily. My like if I don't like any, like I think like this like Thor: The Dark World is the only MCU movie that like I hate with a passion. It's like it is not enjoyable. I can't even bring myself to rewatch it. I saw it once, never seen it again. Uh, I want to revisit the original Thor movie. I think that's underrated. I actually, thought it was like at least B-level kind of movie. I still got some enjoyment out of that. And Ragnarok, I love Ragnarok. Even most people think like, oh, it's too jokey, and like I don't like the direction of Thor. He turns to like a goofball kind of thing. It's like you didn't appreciate him in the first two movies, so they have to, retroactively go a different way with him to make it work. So don't blame Taika Waititi, or don't blame Kevin Feige, don't blame Chris Hemsworth, because you guys didn't appreciate it. If y'all liked the way he was in the first two movies, y'all should have been a little bit more appreciative. You didn't like it, so they went a different direction, and by and large, it works. So I'm sorry, but suck it up. I like jokey Thor. I think that's a way to go. It works. It works to the speed of Taika Waititi. It works to the speed of Chris Hemsworth, and it just meshes well. Because I am not. I refuse to have that go back. All that go back to the Dark World situation, because it wasn't flying, and Thor would have been dead in the fucking water, and who knows how the MCU would turn out if Thor wasn't working or continuously not working. So anyway, let me know in the comments below what you thought of Thor: Love and Thunder, because I don't know, because I don't know. It's like because like I already did like a the entire saga, Infinity Saga I did, and some change up to the point of Hawkeye, how I ranked the MCU up to the point of the first Iron Man up to like Hawkeye TV show. You can check out that video up on my channel, how I rank the MCU. And I don't know at what point will I rank, because I'll probably have to go back. Maybe after by the end of phase 4, I'll go back and apply how I rank all the TV shows and movies, up on the screen, and then do the same thing after Phase 5 wrap up. Uh, because I'm actually enjoying. Unlike most people who don't like, I think it was the casual people who's complaining like, oh, like I don't know what the direction. It doesn't seem like Kevin Feige know what he's doing. We don't know what the overall villain is, and it's like, look, you gotta enjoy. He knows what he's doing. He got a proven track record, an entire Infinity Saga of 23 or 24 movies before the Infinity Saga ends. Trust him, he knows what he's doing. Just because you're not in the know doesn't mean you don't need to know everything just to make it make sense and make the phase work for you guys. Enjoy this phase. It will fit in a nice puzzle. Probably at least halfway through Phase 5, you'll probably see like all the pieces falling together. You just got to enjoy the ride until like you reach to a point where it's like, oh, I see where the chips are falling and it all makes sense now. It will blow your mind. You will enjoy it. Just the multiverse thing, the convergence thing, and like Doctor Strange, and like all this probably leading to like the Secret Wars more than likely. But just enjoy it. The multiverse thing and timeline thing is all gonna fit. It's gonna come to a head, soon. But you just gotta like be patient. And I think like people who are really into the MCU will probably understand that more so than the casual people. But it's just like, just calm down, okay? Anywho, leave a comment below. Let me know what you thought of Thor: Love and Thunder. Anything you liked, anything you disliked. I'll see you guys in like a little bit because I'll be covering my spoiler review of season 1 of Mega Man NT Warrior. And don't forget to like and subscribe and show your support, and I'll see you guys soon.